Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be really fun. I'm going to be doing a little get to know me while I color. I realized that I haven't really done a video like this before where I formally introduce myself and tell you guys all of my lore because a lot of my YouTube channel has been focused on my life as a small business owner. I'm an artist. I mean, this is my coloring book that I made with my friend Ali. She helped me illustrate all of the clay characters that I've been sculpting myself for the past 5 years. So this is truly like the most exciting thing that I get to color with you guys. Real quickly, this video is sponsored by Craftsy. Craftsy is your online resource for everything creative, things sculpting, drawing, painting, sewing, cooking. They even have classes for exercising. Ever since working on something that's so illustrative like this coloring book, I've been wanting to improve my skills on color theory. So I started taking this class called Master Palettes, Exploring Color Mixing by Scott Galatly. He's an expert in his field, and I love how he talks about different color palettes throughout history, such as the Renaissance era versus the Impressionistic era, and now the colors that we use in modern art. I just think color theory is so interesting and can be used in every type of expression, such as painting or making your own coloring book, or even editing videos and color grading those videos. Craftsy is also always making new classes to keep you coming back and staying inspired. You can even connect with fellow makers and DIY lovers to share ideas and ask questions. And as a member, you'll have access to Craftsy's live streaming tutorials where their expert instructors share their tips, answer questions, and engage with the Craftsy community in real time. So if you want to try it out, the first 1,000 people to use my link below will get a 1-year premium membership of Craftsy for only $1.49. I've written down a ton of bullet points that I want to hit about, just basic facts about me, fun facts, more of my personal lore and why I am the way I am. So this should be pretty fun. Grab your tea, grab your coffee. Feel free to put this on in the background, and I am going to start coloring. And just because I know I'm gonna get a lot of questions, they are the Ohuhu alcohol markers. I like them because they are just as good as Copics in my opinion, but they are like 1/3 of the price. So I think the page I'm gonna color is this one right here. While we were testing for this coloring book, I ended up coloring a lot of the different scenes. So this is what they could look like possibly, but I haven't colored this scene yet. This is what a printable version of it would look like. I'm thinking of doing a lot of green with possibly like a pink orange gradient sunset. I think this is like my ideal version of living, just reading in a hammock during sunset. Oh, this looks so cozy. All right, let's get into it. So hi. My name's Tammy. I am 24 years old and I've been posting on this YouTube channel for a couple of years now. I think since 2021 was my very first YouTube video, but I grew up watching YouTube videos my entire life pretty much. As for my ethnicity, I'm Vietnamese, but I really can't speak it all too well, even though I'm first gen. This is actually a pretty sore spot for me that I can't speak Vietnamese as well as my other first gen peers. But I think it's just like I grew up very differently from a lot of other first gen people. A lot of Vietnamese immigrants, was during wartime, but even despite that, a lot of them still managed to immigrate here with their families. But my dad actually came here by himself when he was 18 years old. So he was completely by himself, and for 9 years he was by himself. He didn't have any family members here. He lost contact with all of his siblings and his parents back then. Like there wasn't Facebook yet. So that's how a lot of Vietnamese people communicate now, is through Facebook, but that wasn't a thing back then. So for 9 years straight, I can only imagine that he had to assimilate as well as he could, learn English as much as he could. And then after 9 years, he was able to have the funds to go back to Vietnam and visit, which is where he met my mom. And then they married. They didn't have me until like 7 years later. So by then, my parents were pretty good at English. They still spoke to me in Vietnamese, but I would always just respond in English. So that's why I can't really speak Vietnamese that well. I can understand it conversationally, but ask me to respond and I will just like freeze up. So yeah, that's like a big part of my lore, is like I'm always seeking connection to my family culturally, is because I feel like I have such a deficit language-wise. I grew up in a town called Littleton, Colorado. It's a suburb that's about like 20 minutes south of Denver. I look back on my childhood and it was honestly such like stereotypical suburb experience. Think of like Stranger Things, just playing with your friends in the neighborhood, riding your bike everywhere. That's pretty much how I grew up. And honestly, it was like such an idyllic place to grow up, I feel like, which I'm so fortunate and grateful for. Growing up, I had two best friends. Their names are Caitlin and Gabby, and they were like my next door neighbors. We would knock on each other's doors and ask each other if like, can you play? And yeah, I have such happy memories of that. I feel like my early childhood felt a lot like this actually. We were just playing in the grass and the trees all the time. I've always been enamored with nature and animals. I remember writing in my little notebook, like my dream job growing up was to be a vet and then a photographer for National Geographic. Like I've had like 20 different dream jobs. I wanted to do like every single thing under the moon. I definitely wanted to be Selena Gomez. Like I wanted to be a singer and actress. And I think that's a good sign, is if a kid is very ambitious and has so many dreams, it probably is an indicator that they feel safe enough to even dream that big. Now that I'm talking about it, I was really so lucky in my early childhood to have that foundation to become a dreamer. I was born in 2001, right? So as soon as 2008 hit, things took a turn. I was 7 years old, and I remember this was when my parents started to fight a lot about money. To give more context, my dad was a real estate broker. That was his thing. He had his own brokerage where he lent money for people to take out loans for their mortgage. But if you remember in 2008, that's when the real estate bubble popped and my dad essentially lost his job. He was the breadwinner, which is very typical for a Vietnamese family, but I mean, I can't even imagine how awful that must have felt for my dad. But yeah, there's a lot of stress in my house. I quickly began to grasp what money meant to me, and money to me meant a lot of the time like stress and anger and sorrow. So from that point on, from when I was 7 years old to the time I moved out, things would always be a little tight. Okay, so I did the trees. It doesn't look like much right now. I think I'm gonna hit the sky and like the rolling hills next. And I think we'll start to get a better picture of what this will look like. Let's do like one of these like peachy colors. This might seem like I'm switching topics, but it does relate. My MBTI, which is like my personality type, is INFJ, which stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. So overall, that just makes me a very sensitive person. And I've always known that growing up that I'm pretty sensitive. And I also hate interpersonal conflict. Like I just feel the weight of people's emotions like as if they were my own, and as if everyone's emotions are my responsibility and my burden to carry and also fix. So going back to growing up when my parents would fight a lot, like I think this is another reason why I probably refused to speak Vietnamese, is because they would always fight in Vietnamese. So I just associated it like in a negative manner, which I regret now. I really wish I could reverse that association, but it's just something that happened, you know? And I remember feeling like things were my fault, or even if I couldn't understand what they were saying, I always had to like keep an ear open to listen, because I was worried that like something terrible would happen if I wasn't there. Fast forward 20 years. I didn't realize until after I moved out that like distance really does make the heart grow fonder. Now my relationship with my parents is one filled with much more empathy, and each and every day I try to understand them more and learn more of their stories. Some days it's harder than others, but yeah, if you are dealing with something similar, like I always just try to remind myself like they're just people. Yes, they've made mistakes, but this is like the only way they've known how to do things. no one was there to teach them or guide them or help them financially even. So that's sort of my role now. Here's what the sky looks like so far. I'm not super pleased with it. This always happens when I'm coloring. I like hit a place where I like regret my decisions, but you just have to push through, because honestly, the way these pages are designed is like any way you color it will be cute. And I found that with most coloring books as well. But anyway, going back to me growing up, throughout school, I was always pretty academically driven, but there was always this underlying feeling of like, why am I doing this? I think I was only caring about my grades because that's what all of my friends cared about. I think I definitely was a natural when it came to subjects like English, because that was my favorite subject growing up. I loved words. I loved reading. It was like my favorite thing growing up. Math was always a struggle for me, and I kept fighting it until I realized that I just simply didn't care for this subject, which is not good, but math is very important. But I did like science. One of my favorite classes was AP Bio, because biology is really interesting to me. But I was kind of like not convinced that this is what I should be doing with my life. So by the time high school rolled around, like my sophomore year of high school, I think I realized like I don't want to be spending my energy caring about grades. So I decided to like quit all of my extracurriculars. I decided that I wanted to do something more creative, and I don't know why, but I think it was just like everyone was deciding what they wanted to do for college, and I initially had no clue. But when I realized that I wanted to do something creative and that I didn't necessarily need a high GPA to get into a state college that I wanted to go into, I was like, okay, I don't need to be spending my energy only caring about grades. I could spend my energy developing my creativity or my portfolio even. So that's what I decided to do. By the time junior year and senior year of high school rolled around, I had dropped AP Calc. I was like, I'm not doing this. I went back to normal math. And then I spent a lot of time, honestly, just like, I did not like school at all at this point. So I just like when I go to class, which I don't recommend. I think I definitely took school for granted, and I regret not caring as much back then. Actually, I don't regret it, but like I definitely took it for granted, which is, I'm not proud of that. I would spend a lot of time sleeping in my friends' cars while they were in class. I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't want to set a bad example. Get to know me. I did not care about school in high school. I think at the heart of it all, I was just dealing with so much drama back at home that I didn't have the energy to put into my studies. And I knew I wanted to save my energy for something bigger, because by the time college rolled around, I was hustling. All right, now fast forward to college. I decided to go to the closest state school, which is like CU Denver for me, mainly because the tuition was just so much cheaper than any other school in Colorado. I studied digital design, which is basically graphic design, but with way more emphasis on digital media rather than print. Graphic design is usually associated with things like magazines, newspaper, billboards, but digital design was a lot of learning how to use Adobe Premiere, which is a video editing software that I still use to this day. I learned in college. We also learned how to use Adobe After Effects, Illustrator, Photoshop, like the whole Adobe suite. When I talk about college, I feel like I really didn't have the traditional college experience because CU Denver is a commuter school, so there weren't really dorms that I stayed in. Most of my classmates also just lived at home with their parents and drove to school every single day, so there really wasn't any dorm life. Also, literally after my first semester of college, COVID happened. So I only had one full semester of my freshman year, and then everything else was remote. And I really did like my classes. I feel like I learned so much in digital design that helped me like learn how to market myself and helped me utilize storytelling in my marketing. During COVID, I had so much time. So I ended up starting Uncomfy Studio and posting on Instagram first, and then YouTube and TikTok. I remember when I first started posting videos on a brand new account, felt like I was a kid again. I don't know if you guys remember the Nintendo DSi, but it had this thing called Flipnote Hatena where kids would make animations and post them online as if it was YouTube or something. And I was one of those people posting on Flipnote Hatena. And looking back, I've never been the type to just use my name as my username. In fact, my username changes depending on which stage in life I'm at. So when I was posting on Flipnote Hatena when I was like 7 years old, my username was AnimalGal7478 because, like I said, at the time I was super into animals. So I would make little games for people to like pretend to like wash dogs and like groom their dogs and cats. I'm gonna try to see if I can track down any old photos of those. But in 2020, when I started my Instagram, my username was Uncomfy because at that stage in my life, which I still kind of am at, I get very sweaty and anxious talking to new people or trying new things. I think nowadays I'm finally starting to get over that fear and over that uncomfiness, and it's turning into something new. But back then, Uncomfy definitely stood for me just being like so shy and awkward and uncomfortable. Nowadays, the username Uncomfy serves as a reminder to me that I need to keep going outside of my comfort zone in order to grow, because I think of 19-year-old Tammy who started posting on YouTube and being like shaking in my boots the whole time. That version of Tammy will always be with me. But I hope that in the future, instead of giving off so much nervousness, I give off, this feeling of warmth and safety for other people. So in order to get to that point, I have to keep working on myself and keep putting myself in places of discomfort, because that's the only way you can get better. In May of 2023, I finally graduated from university, and I've been doing this full-time ever since, running my small business and posting videos online. When I first opened my small business, it was purely just hand making polymer clay art, and I talk a lot about this in one of my other videos where I talk about why I'm not hand making art anymore. But basically, I just burnt myself out so much over the past 4 years of sculpting hundreds of pieces a month that I just needed to switch. I just needed to change something, or else I was never going to be able to make art ever again. So that's why I'm making coloring books now and plushies. Working with other people has been such a joy to me, because for the past 4 years I've been doing everything by myself, and it gets really lonely and isolating. And I really do feel like the power of art is the human connection. There's such a disconnect between me talking about human connection and warmth and just the magic of art making while I was actively isolating myself and not taking care of myself and not living as this cozy lifestyle that I was projecting. I knew I had to make a change. So after posting that video explaining why, I feel like, I just got so many really kind messages from you guys. It felt like closure to me, and I really needed that, because I was holding on to polymer clay for so long. It was like all I knew for the last 5 years, and now I'm finding my way back to art as a hobby. Art as a hobby is like the most fun thing. It's the most freeing thing. You can disconnect from social media and the world, and it's so great. But I did find that art as a job relies on you being on social media. It relies on so many things other than just the act of creating in itself, which, I love my job. That's something that I'm definitely coming to grips with. So I'm now having hobbies that I will never monetize. Things like my pottery. I have a pottery wheel at home that I'm just experimenting with, and painting and drawing. Those are things that I just do for myself too now, and it feels so good. This is what we have so far. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna recolor in the grass to be a bit darker, but I don't think it looks too bad. It's not my favorite thing that I've done, but there are ways to fix it. I think I'm going to model the cat after my puffer cat, like the gray tabby cat with the puffer vest. I think that's gonna be so cute. Moving on to some more personal facts. I get some questions about Mr. Uncomfy. So I have been with Mr. Uncomfy, my partner, for the last almost 7 full years. We started dating in 2018. I was in my senior year of high school and he was a freshman in college. We're actually only 6 months apart. I feel like a lot of women prefer like a larger age gap between them and their partner. At least for me, it's kind of nice being in the same stage of life as my partner. Like, we were actively in college together for most of it. We were actively dealing with post-grad together. We could relate on pretty much everything in life. Our families are both also Vietnamese, so that's a huge thing for me, is being able to share like cultural experiences, cultural beliefs. Food is a huge thing. I love food. I feel like I would be a foodie if my stomach just could handle it better. I have a pretty sensitive stomach, so unfortunately I cannot be a food vlogger or a mukbanger because I just get tummy aches like way too easily. I have to be pretty careful about what I eat nowadays. I'm not vegetarian or gluten or dairy intolerant, but I do think I have quite a sensitivity to red meat now, and I can have dairy, but not like loads of it. Mr. Uncomfy is also my first romantic partner ever. So my first and only, pretty much. I'm the type of person who is very loyal and very committed to any person in my life. Like, most of my friends I've had for years and years and years. Like, I still am friends with most of my childhood friends. And most of the time, if there is a quarrel or like something that doesn't sit right with me, like, I will try to talk it out. I mean, there are definitely a lot of friends that I've lost over the years. Like, just as many friends as I've kept, I've lost a lot of friends too. And it is a bit sad when you lose friends, but for me, it's like they just weren't meant to be in my life and we weren't good for each other. And I think I can think about friendships in a very pragmatic way as well. Like, did I bring value to their lives? Did they bring value to me? Was I the best version of myself around them, or was I not the best version of myself? You know, I think about some of my old friendships where I was super jealous or super insecure all of the time. A lot of that had to do with me, like, having to do the work on myself, but also some people are just not good for you as well. So for a lot of my friendships, it was a mixture of both of those things. So nowadays, I tend to keep a really small circle of friends. I'm not the type of person who has more than 10 friends at a time. That's like a lot to me. I value quality over quantity for sure. So like, if I'm hanging out with someone, I prefer to be one-on-one or just like 3 or 4 of us at most. And if it's more than 3 other people, I just find that I don't have as much fun, and it's very hard for me to have a good time when it's like a lot of people. I'm trying to think of other things to share. I was born in January, so I'm a Capricorn, which makes me very hardworking, very ambitious, and I feel like those traits align with me pretty well. I'm also born in the year of the dragon, which also makes me more leaning towards like leadership and entrepreneurship and things like that. Oh my gosh, I have like red ink all over myself somehow. Everything's falling apart. This page is pretty much almost done. I'm just recoloring the grass. So I'm trying to think of any last things to share with you guys. I feel like we covered the basics. Now that I'm 24, I'm definitely feeling a lot more introspective. I am journaling a lot more. I'm trying to be kinder to myself. For the past couple years, I've just been grinding so hard, and I do think everyone needs that period in their life where they're just like working, because that's how you get enough momentum to eventually be able to like lift your foot off of the pedal. I'm so grateful that I have the time to find myself again and find things that I like doing just for me. So I've been recently getting back into my fitness era. I'm like lifting weights and doing cardio. I also got a membership for hot yoga and like mat Pilates. So that's been really, really fun. I love reading. I've only read 2 books this year and it's already April, so that's kind of like an indicator of my pace of reading. But I really, really loved Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. If you read any of my book recommendations, that is like the type of book that I like the most, where it's just a lot of, you know, family drama. Like, not much happens, but it's mostly character driven. I love character driven novels because I'm not like a huge person for action, but if you can tell me like why a person the way they are, if you get to read about that, I'm really interested in that. I also recently read Sunrise on the Reaping because I had to. Suzanne Collins was probably the first author that I read avidly, so getting to read her new novel now, almost like 15 years later, is crazy. It was such a joy to read. I finished that book in like 3 days. I'm pretty much done with this, you guys. I'm just adding some finishing touches now. All right, you guys, here's how it turned out. I think the trees are absolutely stunning. I wish I chose a different color for the hammock, but otherwise, I think it's pretty cute. I was trying something different color scheme wise. Like these ones I chose mostly pastels, which is what I'm comfortable with. But this one, I was trying to go for a bit more deeper colors, and I think it paid off with all of the foliage, but maybe next time for the hammock, I would have chosen like a cream or a light pink. This was actually so fun to color. I feel like if I was just coloring and not yapping, this page would have only taken me like 15 minutes total. All right, I think that's it for this video. I hope you guys feel like you know me a little bit better this time. I honestly feel like I didn't answer that many questions. I basically just went over like my childhood and how I grew up. If you have any more questions, comment them down below and maybe we can have another coloring / yap session soon. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.